Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. Welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. So we're coming to the end of this beautiful chapter in the Uddhava-gita, which is just like chapter 10 of Bhagavad-gita, where Krishna is giving us at the same time kind of meditation props so you can understand and see the power and beauty of God everywhere and everything, but also just a general understanding of the glories of God, of the power. It's called Aishvarya Jnana. Jnana, knowledge, Aishvarya, the power, the beauty, the glory of God. So it's a very beautiful, very poetic verses, very beautiful chapter. And of course, if you want to watch the other classes, this is the 91st class of our Uddhava-gita course. If you want to watch all the other classes, all you have to do is become a member of this channel, and the instructions are here in the description of the video. And then you check out Uddhava-gita.com, where you can have the whole course nicely presented and organized for you. So we are in the 11th canto, the 16th chapter, verse 34, and Krishna is speaking to Uddhava. And this is one of the nice ones. He says, I am the sweet taste of water, and among brilliant things, I am the sun. I am the effulgence of the sun, moon, and stars, and I am the transcendental sound that vibrates in the sky. It's a very nice one. So the taste of water, Krishna says, of course, the same thing in Bhagavad Gita. And I love that because, you know, we drink water all day long, every day. So every time you drink water, you can remember Krishna. That's what I said. It's kind of like a meditation prop. It's something to reconnect you with Krishna throughout the day. And of course, the sun. So, you know, yeah, the sun is there, you know, giving you light. So whenever you see the sun, you're like, that's Krishna. So you can think, and then at night you have the stars and the moon, and then you think, oh yes, that's also Krishna. So the effulgence, the light, whenever you see light, you can think of Krishna. It's very nice. And the transcendental sound that vibrates, the shabda, the concept of sound, the primordial sound of the world. Verse 35. Among those dedicated to Brahminical culture, I am Bali Maharaj, the son of Virochana, and I am Arjuna among heroes. Indeed, I am the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of all living beings. So this is very nice. First, Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj is a beautiful story that you'll find here in the Bhagavad Purana, but way before the 11th canto. So Bali Maharaj is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj, of course, is the very cause of the Nrsimhadev avatar. The Nrsimhadev avatar comes to protect Prahlad Maharaj. And then Prahlad is, Bali Maharaj is his grandson. And so what happened with Bali Maharaj is that Bali, they had taken over again, they had upset the cosmic order, and Bali Maharaj, leading the Asuras, had taken over Swarga, and the Devas had lost their position, they had lost their homes. So the way that God figured out to reorganize the cosmos, to reset the balance, to remove the Asuras from Swarga was very peculiar. Instead of just coming in with a full, power and might and glory, what he did was he created the avatar of the dwarf avatar. So he created the dwarf avatar, and he appears there before Bali Maharaj as a Brahmana, but as a little tiny Brahmana, a little dwarf Brahmana. So as a dwarf Brahmana, he's before Bali Maharaj, and Bali Maharaj had made the promise to satisfy the desires of any Brahmana, qualified Brahmana that came before him. And this was like this is God playing the part of a Brahmana, so he was perfect. He was a perfect Brahmana. So he comes up before Bali Maharaj, and he says, look, I just want 3 steps of land. And he's a little tiny dwarf. He's like, what you just want 3 steps of land? It's like, you should ask for more, I'm the king of the whole universe. I'm the emperor of the universe. Ask for more. He says, no, just that's enough. I just want 3 steps of land. He says, okay. But he knew that it was actually God. He actually knew that Lord Vishnu had come in that form to take his, take the demigod's land back. So he accepts, and then of course then he becomes Trivikram, and so the Lord expands, and in 3 steps he takes over the whole, in 2 steps he takes over the whole universe, and he says, look, you promised me 3 steps, but with 2 steps I've taken everything, what are you going to do now? And Bali Maharaj says, please put your 3rd step on my head. It's beautiful, very good story. So of course, those dedicated to Brahminical culture, Bali Maharaj, very nice. And of Arjuna among heroes, so it's really nice that, he's, in the beginning of this chapter, he told Uddhava, Arjuna asked me the same question in the battle of Kurukshetra, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and now you're asking me this question. And then earlier before, you might remember that he said among devotees, he says, I am you, Uddhava. So now he says, but among heroes, I am Arjuna. So he made this connection back to Arjuna as well. And then he says, getting really grandiose, I am the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of all living entities. So if you really want to understand, the glory and power of God, that's a good place to start. The beginning, the maintaining, and the end of everything, of course, is also God. Verse 36. I am the functions of the 5 working senses. So, you have this concept in the Vedic culture, you have this concept of the 5 working senses and the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. So, he says, look, I am the 5 working senses, and of course the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. And the 5 working senses are the legs, speech, anus, hands, and sex organs. And those 5 knowledge acquiring senses are touch, sight, taste, hearing, and smell. So he says, I am those things. I am the functions of these things. So again, as you go through life, anything you do, if you're doing anything, knowledge, any kind of work you do, you're doing it by the grace of God. Any perception you get of reality, anything you hear, you see, you take, it's by the grace of God that you're having that ability to perceive reality. So that's also an important understanding of the power of God. I am also the potency by which each of these senses experiences its particular object. So it's like all because of God. It's only because of God that you can do anything, experience anything. It's only because of God. That is the power of Krishna. Verse 37. I am the form, taste, aroma, touch, and sound. False ego, the Mahatattva, earth, water, fire, air, and sky. The living entity, material nature, the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and the transcendental Lord. All these items, along with knowledge of their individual symptoms and the steady conviction that results from this knowledge, represents me. So of course, what's going on is Sankhya. This is the list of, in Sankhya, Sankhya means the enumeration of the aspects of reality. It's a very important philosophy, the basis of Vedanta and a yoga. It's always there, Sankhya. So in Sankhya, there's this list of what is reality comprised of. What are the fundamental items of reality? And this is the list. He went through the list and he says, hey, that's all me. So that's the way of saying, look, Sankhya, we're like talking about those details of it. That's all me. I am all of that. That's God. That is the position of God in the Vedas. It's very important to understand it. It's a little different from the concept of this one great being. It's not just like, there's all these teams and that team won the championship, so that's the best team. It's not like that with God. He's not just the best in that sense, like, he's the strongest. There's other people, somebody else could try to compete with him. It's not like that. In the concept of God in the Vedas is not like that. The concept is like He is everything. Everything is coming from Him. Nothing exists without Him. It's not a question of competition. He is the very source of all reality. All reality is God. So these verses are good for you to really understand. Again, like situate yourself, understand the power. God isn't just, oh yeah, He's this powerful being somewhere else. No, He is the source of all that exists, of all that is God. So it's very important. It's like coming out of the end of this chapter and really like showing like the absolute power, the source of everything that God is. Purport. Having given a brief but detailed synopsis of His personal opulences within this world, the Lord now briefly summarizes the opulences that expand from His bodily effulgence. It is stated in Brahma Samhita that of all the material universes within their infinite varieties, transformations and opulences rest on the bodily effulgence of the Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami has elaborately explained this point in his commentary on this verse. Verse 38. As the Supreme Lord, I am the basis of the living entity, of the modes of nature, and of the Mahatattva. Thus, I am everything, and nothing whatsoever can exist without me. Okay, so now really like the message is coming through very clearly, right? I am everything, and nothing can exist without me. This is God. This is the understanding of God. There's nowhere you can look, even the act of looking, the ability to look, it's all God. And nowhere where you look will you not see God. God is everywhere and everything. God is everything. Nothing whatsoever can exist without me. That's God. It's a little different from the understanding of God we get from the Abrahamic religions. This view of God is more clear, it's more powerful, it's more intense than you get clearly from other sources, other religions. So this is the understanding of God. Nothing can exist without God. Purport. Without the manifestation of the Mahatattva, Mahatattva is the cosmic principle of totality or the total material existence, and Jiva, the living entity, the soul, you and me, nothing can exist within the material world. Everything we experience is a combination of the living entity and matter. So here in the universe, everything is either matter, prakriti, or jiva, soul. So everything is prakriti or soul, matter or soul. There's nothing you can see here that isn't a combination of those two things. Everything we experience is the combination of the living entity and matter in its various subtle and gross categories. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the entire basis of the existence of both the living entity and matter. Nothing can possibly exist, even for a moment, without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. One should not foolishly conclude that the Lord is therefore material. As has been clearly explained in this canto of the Bhagavatam, both the living entity and the Supreme Lord are completely transcendental to material nature. The living entity, however, has the propensity to dream that he is material, whereas the Lord constantly remembers the transcendental position of both himself and the conditioned dreaming entity. As the Lord is transcendental, his abode is also far beyond the reach of the modes of nature. The actual purpose of life is to understand by mature conviction the transcendental Lord, his transcendental abode, or own transcendental position, and the process by which we may go back home, back to Godhead. Verse 39. Even though over a period of time I might count all the atoms of the universe, I could not count all of my opulences, which I manifest within innumerable universes. So now Krishna is really, coming to the end. It's very powerful and beautiful, very grandiose. So he says, even if I could count all the atoms in the universe, I could not count all my opulences, which I manifest within innumerable universes. This is a very important and interesting aspect of Vedic cosmology. So in Vedic cosmology, it isn't just this universe, vast as it is, incomprehensibly vast as this universe is. This is just one of innumerable universes. Innumerable. You see sometimes the term 10 million times 10 million universes are manifest simultaneously as a, just to show what a huge number it would be. 10 million times 10 million, 10 million squared. You do the math. So that's how many universes, and then Krishna's opulences in all these universes, innumerable. This is the power. This is Aishvarya Jnana. These things should, I get, my hair stands on end. You should feel that, the grandiose, the power. You should be awed. This is awe and power of the supremacy of God. Unimaginable supremacy of God. This should, again, that's the purpose of this chapter. It's working for me. Hope it's working for you. It's just to give you that, wow, definitely, it would be so crazy of me to not dedicate my life to God, to not worship this being. It would be so insane of me to ignore the very foundation of all that is. The reason of being of all that is. It's just it would be so crazy to go through life just ignoring Krishna is everything. Everything you do, every step you take, every breath you take, everything is Krishna. Purport. The Lord here explains that Uddhava should not expect a complete catalog of the Lord's opulences, since even the Lord himself finds no limit to such opulences. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Kalena indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is within every atom and can therefore easily calculate the total number of atoms. However, although the Lord is certainly omniscient, even he himself cannot supply a finite number of his opulences because they are infinite. Very interesting concept here. Okay, so of course in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, something very similar happens. And in this verse here we're going to read now, verse 40, is very similar to what we find in the end, also about verse 40, verse 41 in the Bhagavad-gita, in the end of this chapter 10 in Bhagavad-gita, when Krishna says this: whatever power, beauty, fame, opulence, humility, renunciation, mental pleasure, fortune, strength, tolerance, or spiritual knowledge there may be, is simply an expansion of my opulence. Very nice. So whatever you see, so this is look, just let's make it easy for you to understand. Whatever great thing you see, whatever looks amazing, that's just a little bit of me. That's what it is. In Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says, I like the way Prabhupada translates, a spark of my opulence. So everything is just born from just a little tiny spark of my greatness. So everything you see, so you see power, you see fame, beauty, opulence, humility, renunciation, mental pleasure, anything you see, fortune, strength, tolerance, spiritual, everything you see is just, that's just a tiny expansion of the Lord's opulence. That's the way to better understand. So you go through life in awe. You can actually use these verses to go through life in awe of the greatness of God. Purport. Although the Lord stated in the previous verse that his opulences are innumerable, the Lord here gives a specific resume and demonstration of his opulences. Verse 41. I have briefly described to you all of my spiritual opulences and also the extraordinary material features of my creation, which are perceived by the mind and defined in different ways according to circumstances. So he's like, okay, like Uddhava, you asked me this, I've described this, he's bringing this to the end. Let me, finish this topic for you. Verse 42. Therefore, now, what should we do now? Now Krishna's going to come to the practical part. Okay, now you understand the glory, the beauty, the power of me. Now, what should you do? What's your part in all of this? So this is verse 42. Krishna says, therefore, control your speaking, subdue the mind, conquer your prana, your life air, regulate the senses, and through purified intelligence, bring your rational faculties under control. In this way, you will never again fall onto the path of material existence. So now, very practical, very yogic suggestions to Uddhava. Look, now that you understand that I am everything, that nothing exists without me, that everywhere is me, that I am everything, now what do you do to stay on this path of enlightened consciousness, of understanding this? This is what you do. Control your speaking. Very important. If you control your speaking directly affects your consciousness. If you say horrible things, you will feel like what you say will reflect in how you feel in the state of your consciousness. That's why, if you say bad things, if you curse people, if you say nonsense, then your brain is just full, your mind is full of this nonsense as well. It gets darker, it gets evil, it gets polluted. So control your speaking. Very important. Subdue the mind, because of course the mind is all agitated, right? In yoga we're trying to calm the mind down. We don't want the mind agitated all over the place. We want it calmed down. And then, with that, you can have a good life. You can conquer prana in the sense of, your life is under your command. When your mind isn't agitated, when it's subdued, then you can regulate your activities. You can determine what should be done, what should not be done. So now you're controlling, you're in command of your life. This is yoga, of course. We want to be in command, in control and command of ourselves. The word Swami, you've seen so-and-so, like Prabhupada, Swami Prabhupada. Swami means master of your own self. Yeah, that's what it means to be a yogi, become a master of your own self. So first now you're no longer just conditioned, just being dragged around by desires, by the gunas, by other influences, by people. These days, being influenced by, social media and campaigns and people manipulating you. No, you're in control of yourself. You're no longer being controlled. Then, regulate the senses. So then you're in control of yourself, and then you can now decide what you're going to do. The senses here, remember, action senses and knowledge acquiring senses. So now you can take command of your body, of your life. And how do you do this? Through purified intelligence. Through purified intelligence, bring your rational faculties under control. So in yoga, there's always this emphasis on buddhi, on intelligence. Because we need intelligence, rational faculties. You need to think things out properly. You need to have knowledge. That's why we have jnana. That's why you're doing this course. That's why we're getting information. You get information to feed your intelligence, so your intelligence can be strong, can understand reality as it is. This is why we're doing it. This is why we're so grateful for Uddhava-gita, for Bhagavad-gita, because we need this knowledge to feed our intelligence so we're no longer ignorant. And now that you're intelligent, you have your intelligence is purified, and then you can bring your rational faculties under control. And so now you're acting in a rational, intelligent way. And that way you have wonderful emotions. That's what I'm saying. You don't become like Spock. It's not like you're not going to have emotions. It's just that when you are guided by intelligence, you have the best emotions. But when you're guided by emotions, you actually experience the worst emotions. So you have to be guided by this nice, beautiful, purified intelligence, rational faculties under control, and then you have a wonderful state of mind. You experience bliss all the time. In this way, Krishna says, you will never again fall onto the path of material existence. This is the secret of staying on the path of yoga. Purport. One should see all things as expansions of the Supreme Lord's potency, and thus with speech, mind, senses, one should offer respect to all things without minimizing any living entity or material object. Since everything belongs to the Lord, everything ultimately should be engaged in the Lord's service with great care. A self-realized devotee tolerates personal insult and does not become envious of any living entity, nor does he ever see anyone as his enemy. This is practical enlightenment. Because why would you do that? Why would you see anyone? Why would you be envious? It's all Krishna's mercy, Krishna's power. Why would you be envious of anybody else? It's like, okay, that's just Krishna's beauty and power right there, and that's Krishna's servant as well. It's all good. It's all within the family. It's all fine. And why would you see anyone as your enemy? You have no enemies. Your only enemy is your own mind. Your mind is the only enemy you have to worry about. So you tolerate personal insult because, like, it doesn't matter what the person is saying about you. You just focus on glorifying God. Although a pure devotee may criticize those who obstruct the Lord's mission, such criticism is never personally motivated, nor is it ever based on enviousness. An advanced devotee of the Lord may chastise his followers or criticize the demoniac, but only to carry out the mission of the Supreme Lord and never out of personal enmity or enviousness. For one who completely gives up the material concept of life, there is no possibility of entering again onto the path of birth and death. Verse 43. A transcendentalist who does not completely control his words and mind by superior intelligence will find that his spiritual vows, austerities, and charity flow away as water flows out of an unbaked clay pot. So you're probably not too experienced with unbaked clay pots, but what happens is, actually, I had this problem. I was in this meeting, I was in India, this gathering of these leaders. And one of the leaders bought these little clay pots with special water that he brought, he was sharing from the Kumbh Mela. So it was this very sacred water. He brought this, look, I brought some water and I'm bringing it to here now. I divided it into these little clay pots and I'm giving it to all the participants in the meeting. So it's like, oh, wow, I have this very special sacred holy water in a clay pot. And I was like, great. And, I'll take this back to my room and, sprinkle it all over myself later. So I could put a little bit, but I kept it for later. I put a little bit on me. I did use a little bit, but it's like, I'll take it and I'll sprinkle it more later. But of course, a little while later, the pot was completely empty. It's like, oh no, because it was an unbaked clay pot. So the water just was evaporated. It just, the clay assumes the water, it just kind of leaks out and evaporates and it's gone. It just drinks up the water. So I was like, oh, Man, so this is what happens. This is what's going to happen with your spiritual austerities, charities, spiritual vows. They'll all leak out like this water did. All wonderful. It's like holy water. These things are holy and amazing. They will all leak out of your life if you don't control your words and mind. And how are you going to control your words and mind? By superior intelligence. Again, buoy, this real focus of yoga, Bhagavad-gita, Uddhava-gita. Really like understand, use your intelligence, take command of your life. Don't just get guided by emotions or desires. No, use your intelligence, think, find out, understand who you are, where you are, what's going on, who God is. Understand life, how life works, and then I can have a wonderful life. Purport. When a clay pot is properly baked, it holds any liquid substance without leakage. If a clay pot is not properly baked, however, water or any other liquid within it will seep out and be lost. Similarly, a transcendentalist who does not control his speech and mind will find his spiritual discipline and austerity gradually seep away and are lost. Dana or charity refers to work performed for the welfare of others. Those who are trying to give the highest charity by preaching Krishna consciousness should not engage in speaking cleverly for the satisfaction of beautiful women, nor should they attempt to become artificially intellectual simply for the sake of mundane academic prestige. One should not even think of intimate sexual relationships, nor should one daydream of acquiring a prestigious position. Otherwise, one's determination to strictly practice Krishna consciousness will be lost, as described here. One must control the mind, senses, and speech by higher intelligence, so that one's life will be successful. Okay, now the last verse of this chapter. I extended this class a little bit so we could finish nicely this chapter. So verse 44. Being surrendered to me, taking shelter of me, one should control the speech, mind, and prana, the life air, and then through loving devotional intelligence, one will completely fulfill the mission of life. So it's a beautiful summary. You should control your vacha, your words, mana, your mind, and your prana. And then when you do that, you become madparayana, you become devoted to Krishna. And then you do that with bhakti. And then when you do that with intelligence. So you have to use your intelligence. And when you do that, seeing, devoted to Krishna, going towards Krishna, taking shelter of Krishna, dedicating yourself to Krishna with bhakti and buddhi. You want intelligence and devotion. So that's where the heart comes in. That's where the emotions come in. Bhakti. Bhakti is love. So with love and intelligence, control your speech, mind, and your very life air, your prana. And thus, you will completely fulfill the mission of life. Gorgeous, beautiful verse. And I hope that you managed to get the power of this chapter. Beautiful, powerful chapter. Hope this chapter helped you focus your determination, enlighten your intelligence so that you can follow these instructions. And have your rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.